The person on your mind is very spiritually gifted, very psychic. They are very familiar with telepathy, ESP, spiritual awakenings, chakras, just to name a few things. This person may even present themselves or define themselves in some sort of way as witchy, as mystical. Definitely somebody that does not adhere to a traditional religion or spiritual pathway, or if they are identifying with a traditional religion, they're definitely somebody that invests more of their time, energy, effort, and belief in the spiritual implications of that, or would define themselves in some way as more of a spiritual rather than a religious person. So, with that in mind, with this energy of I've been telepathically communicating with you, it feels like this person at this particular point in time is trying to sort of put their feelers out, energetically speaking, because they sense that same sort of energy within you, that you are tapped in, that you are tuned in beyond ways in which the sleepers or the masses, kind of like the normal people, the muggles are. This is somebody that is like attracts like. I sense a lot of myself within you, kindred spirit energy. And before we progress forward in the material world, I want to make sure that we are tapping in and tuning into that same frequency in the subtle realms, in the energetic realms, in the liminal space. Because it feels like it will be this person's dream come true, their wish fulfillment, to have a romantic partnership with someone who can keep up with them spiritually. Your beliefs, your experiences, your practices may be different from one another, but this is somebody that definitely wants to incorporate that spiritual dynamic within the mundane experience with one another. They want to learn about your traditions, your beliefs, your practices. They want to teach you about their beliefs, practices, traditions, their experiences. This is somebody that it feels like has never had the opportunity to open up to a romantic partner before in this capacity, because the people that they had previously encountered, had chased after, had magnetized into their life. Either some of them went through a spiritual awakening or was kind of like turned on to certain ideas or certain like surface level beliefs while with this person, or they were dealing with people that weren't on the trajectory of awakening at all in this lifetime. People that might have been very opposed to the idea of spirituality, skeptical people, very like science minded individuals. But even with that energy of like science minded, it feels like this person is sort of a rare breed. Yes, they love science, they love physics, they love the explainable, the quantifiable, but this is also somebody who, based on their own experiences, the things that resonate with them and how they perceive the world, they understand that there is more to reality than meets the eye. So this is somebody that kind of blends the both best of both of those worlds within their own personal worldview and how they move about the world. There may be people around them that are kind of like aware of this quality or this kind of foundation within themselves and how they live their life, but there also could be other people that aren't aware of that. It feels like this person presents on the surface as just kind of like an average individual, but there is so much more to them than meets the eye. And now that they've connected with you, this is somebody who's very excited about like, okay, finally there's an opportunity in my life to explore romance with someone who is not just a fledgling energy, coming online or awake for the first time or totally sleepwalking through life in terms of that kind of like spiritual realm, things outside of the ordinary. So things that you've suggested to this person so far, you shared with this person so far, or something they're just able to intuit, based on maybe your appearance or just a vibe that they get off of you. This is something where they feel like once that sort of level of conversation or interaction, a lot of which may be happening in the subtle realms, once that sort of takes place or strengthens between the two of you, this person is very excited for the ways in which that can like trickle down into or be incorporated in some sort of way in more kind of like traditional or standard romantic experiences with one another. It's like this person has always wanted a spiritually based romantic partnership. They've never had one before, so you are the first. We also have, I don't want you to be with anyone else. So this person is definitely determined, to build more with you, to create more of an understanding, more of a foundation with one another, more experiences. But at this point in time, they are very intentionally, very deliberately focusing on that subtle current between the two of you. This person perceives your energy. They pick up on your energy. They're able to tune in to you psychically already through the link that has been established between the two of you and your interaction so far. This is not the type of person that is invading your energy, encroaching on your boundaries. This isn't like energy vampire. This isn't somebody that's trying to like psychically attack you or, kind of like manipulate you in any sort of way. This is somebody that it's kind of like without addressing that verbally, physically, it's sort of like, are you feeling me? Are you registering this? Are you receiving the messages that I'm sending? If you are capable of sending these messages back to me, like energetically speaking, because telepathy, for anyone that's really experienced it, it's not verbal, it's an exchange of feelings. It is a wave of almost like emotions between two people that transcends language. It transcends kind of like an ordinary expression that happens auditorily or verbally. And so this person is trying to, sort of create that communication between the two of you in those subtle realms, not in a way that makes you kind of question things, question reality, or feel that your energy in some sort of way is being, attacked. And so it feels like they are very kind of careful as far as how this goes on. They're trying not to sort of come on too strong in that sense because they're not really sure, like, are they reading the signs correctly, are they reading your energy correctly, are you really feeling them on that same level? Because if you're not, or it's something that makes you very uncomfortable, it feels like this person has a lot of integrity and they definitely would back off in that sense. If it is something that feels like it's coming on too strong or it's like a mismatch in that capacity, this person is like, okay, we can just like not talk about that. We can just sort of have like an ordinary relationship with one another. We don't need to get into that sort of range of experience. We don't need to kind of probe into one another that far at this point in time, or maybe ever, if that's not something that you're into or just not vibing with you in some sort of way. But this is definitely somebody that feels this kind of like strong urge to connect with you on that subtle level, because as they are reading your energy, as they are picking up on it, as they have experienced within themselves, within their own energetic body. Again, this is somebody that's aware of terms like that: energetic body, prana, chi, aura. Like, all these things are household terms for this person. This is somebody that is very well versed in spiritual concepts, many different traditions. It feels like they themselves may have kind of a multifaceted or even a very eclectic path that they follow, things that work for them, things that resonate for them. This is somebody who's very strong within that kind of spiritual range of skills and ability, knowledge and understanding. And so since they kind of pick up and perceive that energy of like the connection between the two of us, it's not just intense on that like surface level, five senses kind of way, but intuitively speaking, like, I feel your energy, I feel your aura, I feel a receptivity to you and an alertness, an awakeness to you that is not usually encountered in terms of romantic people that they've dealt with recently or at all, or even in terms of just like people in their environment, people in their community. That even if those people are kind of like aware of certain concepts or aware of this person's interest in certain concepts, they're not operating on that same frequency. It's like the two of you are tapped in, this kind of like private conversation just between the two of you that's happening energetically. So if you're feeling this energy, you're like feeling this person kind of projecting themselves to you, this can be that confirmation that they're like, yeah, I want something more. I don't want you to be kind of like trying to seek out spiritually based connection in that energetic sense elsewhere. they're trying to give you these kind of like signals or these indicators that it's like, yeah, I'm aware of that. I'm able to move very fluidly within that kind of energetic realm, and I sense that you are too. And so this is not something though where they want to kind of just limit that to, a nice little cozy relationship in kind of the subtle realms of reality, the higher dimensions, 5D and up. This is definitely somebody that wants to build in that range at this point in time, but then bring that down into a 3D sense to start to incorporate that in the nature of your conversations with one another, the ways in which romance and intimacy can blossom and develop, ways in which there can be all kinds of new explorations within the potential partnership between the two of you, because they've never encountered anyone with such a strong energy that is they are seeing, sensing it, or even just aware of kind of how you move through the world and present yourself overtly or subtly. It's like you're aware of that about yourself too. It's not like you're unconscious or you ignore that about yourself. You're very aware of that about yourself, and that is a big turn on for this person. We also have I was in denial. So it feels like when they first encountered you, they were like, wow, your energy is very powerful. Like, yeah, you're amazing on the surface. You're gorgeous, you're handsome, you're interesting. I feel very drawn in, very magnetized to you. But there was something that they couldn't quite put their finger on about you in the situation. This is somebody who has asked their intuition. Maybe this is somebody that has different kind of like divination practices that they use, or even people that they consult for such purposes that they've had look into the situation, or they themselves have looked into the situation. They have gotten proper reassurance that you are someone who is aware, who is awake. So again, this is somebody that's like, okay, so finally that ideal relationship that they've kind of like dreamed up in their head and they've never experienced in the 3D sense of somebody that can keep up with them spiritually, someone who can keep up with them energetically, someone who is capable of having like a quote ordinary relationship, whatever that'll look like for the two of you in terms of, earthly experiences with one another. But then there's also this ability to explore and to experience something within these kind of uncharted waters of those subtle realms of reality. They've never had that or even anything close to that with another romantic partner before. So this is somebody that has kind of like shaken off that energy of denial within themselves, and it's like, okay, I've satisfied my sort of need to vet the situation out in those kind of subtle ways. And so now at this point, it's like they are consciously sending you those telepathic messages. They are consciously reaching for you, energetically speaking, hoping to kind of like establish a familiarity with one another within that kind of sphere of reality as you continue to develop things between the two of you in a mundane sense. And they do want to bridge that gap in distance. It's not just like, oh, we're never going to talk about this or acknowledge it out loud, but it's something where this person's instinct is almost like we have to create more of that energy of trust. Within those realms, it kind of transcend language, transcend words. And then there will come a time where we find a way to incorporate that in our outward exchanges with one another in a way that is very conscious, very recognized, very embraced openly and loudly between the two of you. We also have, I don't want to hide this connection anymore. Yeah, so at first this person also might have felt very, very kind of self-conscious about the fact that, all their kind of little subtle senses, their spidey senses just sort of like came online when they first encountered you. They really perked up, energetically speaking. This is somebody that feels like that kind of walks around amongst a bunch of like sleepwalkers or people that are not interested in like evolving. They don't believe in kind of the witchy stuff, the subtle realms, the realm of energy. They're just like very kind of materially focused. And so that is what this person has had to kind of like lower their frequency to, almost like a mask that they put on, maybe to go to work or, interact with people socially, just that's kind of how they are when they're around other people. And then there's this kind of private life that they have where it's like things that they're interested in, skills and abilities that they have, that they kind of explore that, strengthen that, kind of, participate with that sort of behind closed doors with themselves, or maybe even just with a select group of like friends, maybe even not people that they deal with physically, just like friends online, things like that. And all of a sudden you've come into their physical world, into their physical reality. It's like, whoa, okay, here's somebody that is very different than anyone I have met before, with romantic interest, romantic potential, chemistry between the two of us. Here is someone very different from others in my life in various capacities, that are letting me kind of, be a version of myself, but not the full version of myself. And so they're very intrigued about the possibilities between the two of you. This is definitely somebody that wants to see, like, what happens next, what more can occur between the two of you, because it's totally uncharted territory. The instinct feels like, yeah, let's build a little bit of this kind of sensing of one another within that spiritual realm. Let's strengthen our ability to communicate beyond the directness of how we communicate otherwise. But then this is somebody who really wants to, again, kind of further your romantic connection with one another. Bring those spiritual topics to the surface. This is somebody that doesn't want to hide their gifts and abilities, their knowledge, their beliefs from you. It's somebody that wants to share that, wants to kind of, exchange the information, kind of learn from one another. Or perhaps there are ways in which your traditions, your practices, your beliefs, that those can be kind of blended together to expand your experience of kind of that wilderness of the astral realm, or the subtle realm, or the spiritual experiences within the human and mundane lives that you are living. So this is someone that is very excited about the fact that they are picking up on your signal. They're pretty sure you can pick up on theirs. So do expect more communication from this person telepathically, and energetically speaking. They're definitely like astral projecting to you, attempting to do that, again, in a way that it feels like is very respectful. They don't want to scare you. They don't want to be like off-putting. They don't want to come on too strong. They don't want to overstep any boundaries. This is somebody with etiquette. This is somebody with discretion. This is somebody with, kind of morals and ethics as far as that is concerned. But it feels like it would be very pleasing to them if this is something where more can develop between the two of you romantically, not just in a 3D sense, but also in terms of, this would be something they'd almost define as like a higher level soulmate connection. Not just that it's a better love, in the mundane sense than anything they've known before, but it's kind of like a higher level love because it reaches out and into very consciously, like all these different sort of layers within the fabric of reality. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. Like or comment to claim these energies. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more content that I put out here. Don't forget to hit the bell button to get notifications every time I post a new video. And if you'd like to book a personal reading with me, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link for that below. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.